Hey y'all, come on in just really quick. This is a late live, but a quick live because I had promised to read only the court. I'm going to be done with the Rashona story after I read the quick Jane Doe Speaks, which is chapter 13, because this is when she actually goes to court and looks R. Kelly in the eye for the first time in a while. And she says that he gives her this bad look. And that's when she knew she was doing the right thing. So, really quick, chapter 13. And that's probably all I'm going to read, like on lives or whatever. I'll probably finish reading the book myself, just for myself. But I know so many people read this book and, are probably getting tired of it. But I promised to read chapter 13. So if you want to hang around, that's fine. If this is the replay for you, put the hashtag replay. And then I'll talk about my opinions about it afterwards. And then we'll be done with Rashona's story, unless something else breaks. So I'll get started here in just a second, give people a few minutes. But as you come in, hit the like button. Thank you for being here so late. Let me know where you're tuning in from. This is crazy. Why are you still talking about Kels? Move on. Because it's my channel and I can do that, Jay. Thank you, though, for your comment. I can respect that. But this is my channel and I can still do that. I'm going to read chapter 13 as I promised. So, anyway, but thank you, though. I appreciate how you feel about it. And as I said, when I read this chapter 13, I will be done, but I can do what I want to do over here. Thank you. Yeah. Anyway, welcome. And if hit the like button on the way in. Yes, right. Yes, right. So I'm late, but it's only because I'm doing this only one chapter that I promised I would read. So I wanted to do it just when it was an off night. Since I was up, I was like, let me just knock this out and people can just look at the replay if they want to, or they can bypass it if they want to. I know you don't really care for the reading part of it. So, yep, I'm up. Need to be in the bed because I got to hit it in the morning. I know, right? I'm done right after this. I'm done. I just wanted to read the court part. So I know people are tired of it, but it is what it is. I want to read it. So anyway, I'm gonna start right at the point where she speaks and when the court part ends. So it's just about a few pages. Then I'll be done. But anyway, give everybody a chance to do the replay. And at least I kept my word that I would read it on live. So here we go. If you don't want to stick around, I get it. I really, Harlem Wright said the same thing. What are you doing up this late? Listen, I was up, so I said, and I was gonna read the book. So I said, I'm gonna do my live like I promised. So here I am. So anyway, really, really quick. I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna be done. So chapter 13, Jane Doe speaks. And I think Rice said, you streaming at midnight? Yeah. Need to be in the bed. I gotta hit it in the morning. But anyway, here we go. So this is chapter 13 where she speaks. I'll stick around, but I don't want to hear about this dude again until 2050. Okay, I promise this is this is it. And I just like I said, I know people was like, okay, already. Everybody in the world is talking about it. Let's move on. So after this, we gonna move on. Um, all the prep and questioning in the world could not have prepared me to walk into the full courtroom on August the 18th, 2022. The trial had begun 8 days before, and the media called me for federal government star witness. I was never so happy to have to wear a surgical mask on my face as I was then. I didn't want anyone to see my expression before I pulled myself together, not the spectators who had stood in line for hours for a chance to at a seat, or the throngs of reporters clutching their notebooks. Only a few minutes before, I had been sitting in the holding room having what could best be described as a short flu and panic attack combination. Though my cousin, who had come with me, kept reassuring me this room's temperature was warm, my body was shaking violently because I felt like I was in an icebox. As the bailiff walked me through the courtroom's center aisle, my face felt like a splotchy mess, both too hot and too cold. My mind was jumbled. I wondered if the crowded rows of observers groupies, reporters, and mute R. Kelly activists, and a few of Robert's current and former supporters, included any folks I knew. Did anyone from high school or my old church see me walk in? Was anyone besides my cousin there to cheer me on? What would my other family members think? I tried to make out a few familiar faces of those who had been interviewing me for so many months in the sea of surgical masks. Not all who had been involved were there, of course. Several prosecutors had changed positions, been taken off the case, or just swapped out to cover the backlog of federal cases following the worst of the pandemic. So I had gotten a taste of what it was like to have to talk about difficult truths in front of a revolving door of new folks. The crowd blurred into one big blob, and I caught sight of the back of Robert's head. A fresh wave of intimidation washed over me. I had no more loyalty to him, no more love for him. But the idea of facing the man that I was never able to confront in front of the courtroom full of people churned up every bad feeling I'd felt because of Robert since I tore myself away from him more than 11 years before. The pain I tried to minimize, telling myself that we were now friends. The insecurity behind my fake smile when when I hung at the studio or attended the parties. The trauma of revisiting spaces where I'd be abused and tormented. The fear of three would always be more videotapes. The sense of inadequacy when I saw him flanked by other women. The neediness of wanting to be validated by him. The shame of being seen as dirty, thirsty, damaged goods. As I got close to the witness stand, as I got close to the witness stand where I was to sit, I walked right past Robert, slumped at the table for the defense. I thought of the years of manipulations, gaslighting, violence, love bombing, isolation, humiliation, and dehumanization. And I sat down. Tried my best not to look at him, but a feeling came over me and convinced me. The most important thing for me to do was to face him right now. I shifted my eyes, looked. At the moment I did that, he snared at me, disgust oozing from the expression as if to say I had turned on him. Disgust at me. The nerve of you, my mind roared. His arrogant attempt to intimidation limped and died right in front of me. Robert had no power over me. His tired stunt flipped a switch within my spirit so I could access my true source of power and courage. I didn't look at him again. I took my oath under my chosen pseudonym of Jane Doe. My decision probably didn't make sense to everyone, especially since I had been referred to by my real name in the courtroom proceedings during Robert's first trial in 2008. As I discussed earlier, there were so many ways in which my identity wasn't protected then, but this time, as a single mother and grieving daughter who would testify to Robert's crime, and with my family name in Chicago, I didn't want to express my identity to more folks than necessary and make myself a curiosity. I wasn't ready for the I wasn't ready for the notoriety. The prosecution took care to ask questions in an unbiased way, and I answered every question I needed to with confidence. But the cross examination by the lawyer of Daryl McDavid, June Brown, and especially Robert were more grueling. They asked questions that were designed to lead me to the answer that they wanted. I answered with the truth. It was difficult to tell a room full of people about experiences I had previously told myself I would never discuss. But what was also nerve wracking was the fact that let me see, I saw Robert get off the first time. So even though I was testifying and exposing everything, I couldn't be sure what the finale would look like. I just kept praying that Robert's time was up. Even when the answers were embarrassing or made me look needy, I kept my head on straight and stayed faithful to the commitment I had made to my dad, and I would do the right thing and not be swayed to the left or right. Holding on to the truth, I kept trusting that it would lead to the correct outcome, to the revelation and justice. The U.S. Attorney's questions asked my adult self in the cold light of that full courtroom made it painfully clear that even though I was always following Robert's direction or reacting to what Robert wanted, he always had a plan. So the prosecution says, Jane, can you take off your mask? Okay, thank you. And pull the microphone nice and close. Now, you explained in your testimony earlier today that the conversation changed to X talk with Mr. Kelly. Do you recall that testimony? Yes. Can you explain to the jury if you know why you all engaged in X talk at that time? Again, after he became my godfather, there became an attraction and he started making advances, and that's how it unfolded. And why did you engage in the X talk with him? I just kind of went with the flow. He kind of threw me off. I wasn't exactly sure how to respond or how I should handle it, so I just was being responsive. And how did you view him, Mr. Kelly, at the time when the X talk started and you participated in it? How did you view him at the time? As an authoritative figure? What do you mean? Can you explain? Well, he was an adult and he was somebody I looked up to. So he was an authoritative figure over me at the time, aside from the actual acts or anything like that. So again, I went with the flow. Okay. And then we talked. In your testimony, you explained to the jurors that you started to engage in X acts. And again, we are talking about before you turned 15 when the actual intercourse began. Okay. So we're talking about that time frame between when you were 14 years old. Mm-hmm. Why? And you said you were engaged in X acts with Mr. Kelly. Why did you participate in those X acts? It was out of intimidation. And again, like he was an authoritative figure. So I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know how to say no. I felt uncomfortable, but at the same token, I looked up to him. I did see him as an authoritative figure, so I just kind of went along with things, and then it somewhat became normal. Okay, so when you say it somewhat became normal, what do you mean? What did you start feeling for him? I started having feelings for him. I was attracted to him in that way, and things were happening so frequently. It was kind of just like being done out of repetition. And when you say things that were happening so frequently, what are you talking about? Actual involvement, engagement, or interactions? Okay. And then again, so we're talking about the period when you were 14 and X acts were occurring. And then you explained to the jury that when you were 15, that progressed to actual intercourse. Is that correct? Yes. And you had explained that you knew you were 15 because you had lost your virginity. Is that right? Correct. And just to be clear, to whom did you lose your virginity? Robert. And how were you feeling about him around that time when you were first began engaging in actual intercourse when you were 15? I developed feelings for him and I felt good about our interactions. What are some of the things that, if any, he was saying to you to make you feel good about your interactions? That he loved me, that he would take care of me, that he was my protector. And what were your responses to those things that he was saying about being that he would protect you and that he loved you? I would respond in the same way. I love you too. And I would feel good about the level of comfort that he was giving me. So it made me feel good. And you also talked about there was a point where you were willing to bring in friends into actual acts and actual intercourse with Mr. Kelly. Why were you comfortable? I take that back. I take that back. Why did you do those things? Because I considered myself to be a submissive person and I wanted to give him what he wanted or required. What were the ways in which you encouraged your friends? Again, we were talking about specifically Pinky and Brittany to join you all in those X acts. It would start off as like joking conversations of me having a crush on him or just discussing different interactions that me and him had just to gauge like how they might feel or if they would want or if they would want to be included. So when we were talking about Brittany earlier, you mentioned that she was older than you. How much older than you was Brittany or is Brittany? I believe a year. So when you first engaged in X acts with was it your testimony that occurred when you were 15? Yes. And so Brittany would have been how old? 16. And can you please explain to the jury that first experience in that bag? Mhm. Sorry, y'all. And can you please explain to the jury that first experience, if you will, with Brittany, how you engaged her into the X acts with Mr. Kelly? It would start out with me just joking and saying like, "Oh, I have a crush on him. He's like, I like his music. I like when he says that. I like when he says this with the music or that with the music." It was like things that he would have to say that would make them like put something on their minds to be engaged with us. And can you recall the first instance with Brittany when the first time it happened with Brittany? It was at Chicago Tracks in the lounge of the studio. Okay, if you recall, can you just describe the interaction? We were all sitting on the couch after the studio session, watching TV. He would usually go or maybe listening. Let me start over. We were all sitting on the couch after a studio session. Watching TV is how we would all usually go, or maybe listening to some music that had just got finished up. And then we would start like him saying, "I want to see you do this to Brittany," or "I want to see you do that." And that's when the emotions would start, or the interactions would start actually. And when you say he was saying, "I want to see you do this," or "I want to see you do that," what were those things? Can you describe them? Kissing, grabbing on each other's breasts, or like grinding and holding each other by the waist and like dancing, dance movements. Okay. And would you do those things as he instructed? Yes. Why were you willing to do those things? Again, I was thinking I was in love at the time and I was being submissive and I wanted to give him what he wanted. And I didn't want to upset him or make him feel like I wasn't cooperating. So I went along with it. Now, you had mentioned that you had feelings again when you were 14 and 15, but you had feelings for him, that you loved him. Is that right? Yes. And what, if anything, or some of the things that he was doing at this time when you were 14, 15, and 16 that made it seem like that y'all were in love with one another? Just the time that he would allow me to be around him through certain emotions, or like certain things he would do for me, like if it was my birthday or if anything that I wanted, he just made it seem like it was available to me. So not just like materialistic, more like emotional support with anything that I was going through, whether it was school, my group, or friends. He was just there for me. He was supportive. What about events? Did he attend any events that you were participating in? Yes. It would be like if my group was doing something, or if I was having like a basketball game, things of that nature. And what would he do at your music groups or basketball games, if anything? He would just show up and be supportive. And, it looked really cool from my friend's perspective that I had this celebrity showing up for me. So it was more like that. How did that make you feel when he showed up for you? It made me feel good, excited. So I sat on the witness stand, clenching the scarf I was wearing so tightly that my palms were sweating. I looked out into the gallery and caught sight of one of Robert's friends. He looked of disgust toward me, threatened to send me. Okay. He looked his look of disgust toward me threatened to send my mind into a bad place, so I looked away. As I answered still more questions, I realized just how well Robert had groomed me to submit to his will, seek his approval, and make me believe his feelings were more important than mine. He also hid my own best interests from me. So the questioning continues. So I'd like to direct your attention to April 2000. Do you recall being interviewed or spoken to by people from the Department of Children and Family Services? Yes. What do you recall about that encounter? There was an allegation made about the nature of Robert and I, excuse me, the nature of Robert and I's relationship, And they wanted to come out and ask questions to investigate if there were anything actual happening between us. And in 2000, April 2000, you were still 15, is that right? You turned 16 in September of 2000, is that right? Yes. Okay. So April 2000, you were 15 years old. What was your response to the question of DC from the Department of Children and Family Services about their allegations? I denied it. Why did you deny it? I was afraid that something bad would happen to Robert. He really instilled in me that if anybody found out about the nature of our relationship, that things would be really bad for him. And I wanted to protect him. So I did everything I could to keep a secret. So okay, just to be clear, you were untruthful with the Department of Children and Family Services. Is that right? Yes. And you testified that you wanted to protect him. Yes. Why did you want to protect him? Well, again, I did look up to him. I didn't want to see anything bad to happen to him. And at this point, with the way things were happening between us, I was also afraid. Afraid of what? I didn't want to upset him. I didn't want to trigger anything, and I didn't want to expose what was happening between us. Did you want to keep your relationship intact? I did. Now, at this time, again, this is April 2000. You were 15 years old. Did you tell your parents about what was happening between you and Robert Kelly? No. Why? Because that was something that I would take to my grave. I was not going to reveal that to anybody after many conversations of him drilling how important it was that he would be in big trouble if anybody found out about this. So I looked at it as I was protecting him. Did you feel comfortable telling your parents that you were engaging in sexual activity with Robert Kelly at the time? Again, this is April 2000. No. Why? Because I knew it was something they wouldn't approve of. Now, after that, you were approached and questioned by Department of Children and Family Services. You were later questioned by Chicago Police Department officers. Is that correct? Yes. And what? What were they asking you about? What were they questioning you about? Robert and I's relationship. Have we had any actual contact with each other? What was your response to the questioning? No. Why did you respond that way? Because again, it was embedded in me that this could never come out. And I didn't want my parents to find out either. So I was doing everything I could to keep it a secret. Did you tell Mr. Kelly about CPD questioning you? Yes. What was his response? He was just asking what type of questions they were asking me how did I answer the questions. And he was telling me that I did a good job and that I handled everything correctly. As challenging as it was to answer the prosecution's questions, sitting for cross-examination by Robert's lawyer was even more uncomfortable. It was the second day of the testimony and I felt exposed. I was trying to focus on one question at a time, not over-explaining and not under-explaining, but just trying to address exactly what she asked me. When she began to show me transcripts of texts Robert and I had exchanged in 2018 and 2019, I felt especially intimidated. I winced as I answered yes. I sent and recognized them. Not only was I afraid of how I looked to the jury and spectators, but I also was ashamed to answer some of the questions, whether it was on behalf of me or my parents. Now, so this is Robert's attorney now cross-examining her. Now, after you moved out, you maintained a very tight relationship with Robert, didn't you? Yes. Despite how terribly abusive it was, according to you, you remained close to him, correct? He wasn't like that all the time. Uh-huh. In fact, your whole family was very close to him. Yes. Even after you broke up because of the alleged abusive relationship, right? Yes. Sometimes I answered meekly, embarrassed by the question and ashamed to hear myself answer out loud. On the face of her question, I knew she wanted to make the jury doubt me, to show that Robert must not have been so bad if I still reached out to him and cared about him. So the cross-examining continues. On October 15, 2018, you said, "My mom lost her mother. Check on her when you get a moment, please." Right? Yes. Because Mr. Kelly was close to your mother, right? Yes. Even at this point, isn't that fair? That's correct, right? Yes. And he responded a little bit later and he said, wow, I just got this. Sorry to hear that. Send me her number, please. Which you did, right? Yes. And he said, I'm okay. How are you? And you said, my heart is heavy, but it will be better with time, right? Correct. Then you ask him, what have you been up to? He said, I understand you talking to the mirror right now, but you're right. It will all get better if you really believe like I do. And you responded, I can only imagine. I think about you and pray for you often. He responded, and it's working. I appreciate it. And you said, I feel it. So I know you do. And then you said, let me know when you can catch up. Go to the next page. And you said, okay. And he said, okay, baby, just stay on my radar. It's all good. And you said, will do. It was difficult to have to admit that, yes, I did go along with this or say that. But on a deeper level, I wasn't facing the courtroom or Robert. I was facing myself as well. And then you hit him up again on January 3rd. What you doing tonight? Do you see the top one? Yes. And he says, studio session, but I will be there drinking and chilling. And you said, okay, I'm going to come through. Come through means I'm going to stop by, right? Correct. And he said, hit me around 8:30 and 9. And then you texted him later and said, are you there? You said, need you to respond right away, right? Correct. Hey, are you there? We're pulling up now. And then he didn't respond, right? Correct. And then later on, he said, what happened? And you said, I came. You never responded. And I kept calling your phone while I was outside. Do you remember that night? Not exactly, but that sounds about right. And then he said, oh my God, are you serious? Why not do what everybody else do? Just come in, laugh out loud. It's a party. I can't hear my phone. People grabbing me and trying to take pictures. I wanted to believe that the man who could be in this thoughtful, that could be this thoughtful and fun person had had concealed, had canceled out the man who had stolen my virginity, my agency, and my self-esteem. I wanted to believe that if it was that terrible version of Robert ever that if that let me start over. I wanted to believe that if that terrible version of Robert ever existed, he no longer did because I had somehow brought out the best in him. I still wanted to believe that I was important to him, necessary even, that I had the ability to do something for him that no one else could. Without me even realizing it, after I took a pause and caught my breath, I had created a new job for myself, reminding Robert why he loved me so he would be kind to me, and rehabbing his image in my own mind. I doubt that it was Robert's lawyer's intent. I doubt that it was Robert's lawyer's intent, but so much of what she forced she forced me to confront in her cross-examination was like a crash course in my own state of mind. Just 3 short years before, I had a kind of revelation. By 2019, I had thought I had washed Robert out of my hair more than I actually had. Having my text messages thrown back in my face was like a window into my broken heart. I wanted to be healed. I wanted to believe that I was all right, that what had happened wasn't as bad as it was. I know now that I was just coping, trying to make lemonade from the sack of lemons Robert had thrown into my arms when I was a girl. As I sat on the witness stand, I had a flash of clarity about the intentional work I needed to do in order to repair the damage that had been done by Robert and discover the woman I was and I wanted to be. I was a mother now. I wanted my son to love himself for who God made him to be, not because of who someone else had said he was. But I needed to be able to model that. On the other side of this experience, I determined that I would get there. While the realization couldn't be captured in my answers to every question in the courtroom, I knew that what I said registered. I knew I was no longer the nasty girl or the girl on the videotape that got peed on. It was bigger than me at this point. When I finally finished with my 2 grueling days of testimony, I made sure I looked at Robert before I walked out of the courtroom. I felt as light as a feather, like I could wash my hands of him. When I walked back into the holding room, I literally fell to the ground and cried. I laid there for a moment as the prosecutors congratulated me. You did great. You did not fold. I knew everything would be okay. I didn't feel scared anymore. I didn't feel attacked anymore. I felt spiritual, like oil was running off my body. I thought about how day 2 of my testimony had begun. The bailiff escorting me onto the witness stand, my feeling so nervous and discombobulated, while folks passing by mistook me for the lawyer. They didn't see me as a victim. They was That was when Dad's spirit had come over me and stayed by my side. I heard the things he used to say to speak life into me. I felt the protection. There, on the other side of the eternity, he reached out to me and redeemed himself by giving me the courage and the authority to speak the way I needed to, and I did. So that is that. That's all they gave us when it comes to the court hearings. That her testimony, it was very just brief. I wish they would have gave us more. Like, I really wish she would have made a lot of it about what she said in the courtroom. Now, when some people hear that, they'll say, see, that's why he wasn't wrong, because even after she got away from him, she went back, tried to go see him again. So really, is this really Robert's fault? So, I mean, that this is all I'm going to say, and then I'll go. Like, when she got with him and he became her godfather at 12 years old, she was just a little child. And so from 12 until 17 or 18, when she left, she was pretty much brainwashed. She was pretty much, she had been groomed. She had been taught to do the things that she was engaging in. So, I mean, at 12, you're very vulnerable at 12 years old, because what grown people tell you to do, that's what you do. And so as she grew older and matured more, she started thinking, this man is in love with me. Like, I love him. He's my boyfriend. He protects me. He's there for me. And so I got to protect him. And so whatever he's doing wrong to me, I don't want him hurt. So I'm going to keep his secrets. I'm going to lie to DCFS. I'm going to lie to the Chicago Police Department because I want to protect him. So, right, exactly, right. But that's the brainwash. That's the brainwashing that people don't understand. Exactly. And so they say, well, then why do they go back once they get away? Well, like, that's all she's been doing. If you think about it, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 6, 7 years with this man, all while grooming and being, told what to do and how to do it his way, and having you to rehearse over and over and over and over and over to protect him and to hold his lies. That's all she knew. That's all she knew. So she had to live a life where she could get past that. So anyway, that's all I'm going to talk about with her. I'm not going to come back and read, right? I think I'm done with it. I'll just read the rest to myself. But I did want to get the court part out. So anyway, thank y'all for being here with me late night. If you didn't hit the like on your way in, go ahead and hit the like on the way out. If you do have comments, go ahead and leave the comments. Otherwise, we'll talk on our live on Friday, unless I decide to go live tomorrow. I don't know. It just depends. I hope y'all have a good night. Go get some rest. We'll talk soon. Good night.